One, go.
All right, and we are live. All right, this is our first little intro we have of our little topic group here we got. So, gonna introduce all you guys. This is just keeping it honest AF or as fuck or as fudge, whatever you prefer. So, this is your boy TJ. As well, we have a few other people that are here. We also got Jen from the block. We have just Raji, as well as we also have Jen Sizzle. And this is just going to be our little first kind of get together, just to get everybody situated. So,
Jazzy Sizzle.
uh,
Jazzy Sizzle.
you'll find more messed up. So,
DJ hit the peace pipe, y'all. Please forgive him.
yeah, it's a Friday night. Y'all know what I was doing.
We all know what you were doing.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'm
You
playing.
know, TJ, you're a
Guys,
mess, and we can actually get into what you were doing a little later.
Hey, you know
Instead of
what? It's
podcast.
Saturday. It's Saturday somewhere right now.
It definitely is. But speaking of Saturdays and Fridays and all of those other days, how do y'all feel about Joe Biden's comment that he made on what was that? The Breakfast Club.
with Charlemagne.
Yes, because I
Oh,
believe that was yesterday. That was definitely one of those days.
mm-hmm.
Where I think the quote exactly was, if you're having a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you're not black. Or you ain't black. I don't know. That's what he
He
said.
put that ain't in there. He
Yeah,
put
he
that in
did. You
there.
wanted to make sure H, that nice apostrophe T. Just wanted to spread it out there.
So
Try-
how do y'all feel about his comment?
I think he was just being real relaxed and try to be really relatable, and it backfired on him a little bit.
Eh, you know what? I don't even really think so much backfired. I think he just made a comment, and then once somebody said, "Hey, let's make something bigger out of this than what it is," it all went downhill from there. You know, it had to happen eventually.
And you know, Charlemagne is the type to kind of like over exaggerate and overinflate certain things and comments, and he's just that type of person. So I think that was the wrong platform. Or so you know what? Maybe it was the right platform. It was just the wrong way he said it.
Right.
He felt that
And
since he was on the Breakfast Club, it's more, he was appealing more to the black vote. So he wanted to, like you said, be more relatable, but he did it in a way where it's like, okay, well, if you don't vote for me, you ain't black. You know, what do you mean you ain't black? As if you're acting black, or you ain't black as a race or complexion? You know, it's just, I guess that ties into where we're going to go now, where do we feel like society is oversensitive with certain comments as opposed to how it used to be back in the days when we grew up?
that's a great question because what Joe Biden said, it had Black Twitter up. They were in an uproar. Like, is he trying to cultural appropriate? Is he doing too much for the black vote? What does this have to do with him being culturally insensitive? Like, so how do you think he kind of gauges with other people who might have said comments that could it be seen as offensive to different cultures?
What do you think if, just hypothetically, we closed our eyes and Donald Trump was invited to the Breakfast Club and he said on the Breakfast Club, if you don't vote for me, you ain't white? What if he said that?
Why is it when you said that, all I could think about is what's his name? Not Stink Meaner. What's his name from the Boondocks? Uncle Ruckus. That's all I could think of when you said something like that. It would be literally just something that some people would laugh at it, but somebody would get offended, and you would be like, "Well, I see both sides, but I'm gonna leave it alone," or "No, I'm gonna make my voice heard," because that's what I feel like people seem like they're doing nowadays. It's they take a comment and they have to enlarge it or they have to make it so they can make a comment on it. That's what we do. It's media. It's social media.
I think his comment was really innocent. Biden, I think he was just trying to reach out to Black people. He was, I mean, Hot 97 is mostly Black and African American listeners. Like, but there was a lot of people who were sensitive about it. But I also think that if Donald Trump said it, we would be in an uproar. So where is there a boundary on what people can say? Like, is there technicalities on how sensitive we are? Is it who we say it, what demographic we're reaching when we're saying it?
Do you guys think, though, also to add on to that, do you think it's so much more as who said it? Because I think sometimes we have just biases before someone even says anything. Like, for instance, if Obama said that, I'm sure people wouldn't have had any problem at all because it's Obama. That man could do no wrong. We all know that.
But
But
guess what? Obama's also Black. So Obama could
Word to
talk about
Jay-Z.
Black people.
so I have a question then.
Hold on. Oh, sorry. The words of Jay-Z, Obama. Before you even go further, he did say that if you know that Obama's half white right because he's half white, something like that.
Yeah.
Didn't he say that, quote that in a lyric? So we also forget that Obama is half white, which is
But guess what?
Hmm?
To be technical, and according to a lot of laws, especially slave laws back in the day, if you were 1/8 Black, somewhere down your lineage, that means your great, 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 great something was Black. Technically, you were considered Black. You were an octoroon. So my president is Black.
And my
Okay.
Lambo is blue.
My Lambo. The words of Jeezy. So he's my forever first Black
Yo,
president.
he's so hot.
So
Michelle can get you, Jasmine. But go ahead, Thomas.
yes, but do you guys think, and this is going to be branching out on a lot, just in general, do you guys think the Black community itself, we kind of keep our things, like, we keep things sacred? Well, like, we don't really let that many outside races or outside, cultures have comments. Like, even now in rap, you have Eminem, and even Eminem knows, like, he's like, okay, well, if I say the N-word, I'm not going to be accepted anymore. We don't have, like, in basketball, like, in sports, I should say, we just have things where, as a culture, African Americans, they kind of keep their pride, or they keep whatever they do to their culture. They try not to let that many other people enforce things. Like, any other race makes a comment, it's a problem. But if we make a comment, it could pass. That's for, like, artists in the industry. That's for sports athletes. Get where I'm kind of getting at? It's like we have, like, a certain thing where we don't let other people make comments on us.
I get it. I actually understand because I'm one of those people. Sometimes I be on CP. If nobody knows what that means colored people time. I be on CP often.
You forgetting that letter, though.
Now, if certain people be like, you know what, Black people are always late, I would feel some kind of way. Maybe. But I know that I'm one of those people that's consistently late. So I feel like sometimes we kind of feed into the prejudices and the stereotypes that are made against our culture, but only we can kind of pinpoint it. Like, if other people say it, we become very much overly sensitive. But I feel like we're not the only culture that does that. Everybody has their thing. Look at the LGBTQ community. And I hope I said that correct because I don't need any of them coming for me.
There you go. Hey.
There you go.
Think about how many even comedians have gotten fired or canceled because of certain things that they said against that community.
But bringing up comedians, how many comedians do you know that are, like, just Caucasian? Like, I was just trying to think of like, African American comedians. Even that's hard to find.
It's because maybe this sounds wrong, but Black people are funnier.
Jerry Seinfeld is one.
No, you know what I
Oh,
think it
you
is?
went way back.
Yeah.
You know what I think it is? I don't think that they're more funny or less funny. I think that they're just more relatable to things that we're going through. So we can find those things more comedic. Just like a Caucasian person will look at a Caucasian comedian and they find those things hilarious. That we're just like, what?
You know what else? I see that, but also because we know the things we could say and people could relate to, and not that it wouldn't offend people, but people would look at us like, hey, that's like my cousin saying that, or that's like my family, like going, you want to go way back, think about Richard Pryor. The stuff he said, and what's his name? Who played Sanford and Son? Red Fox. Anybody did stuff like that today, immediately you're banned. Roseanne made one comment, canceled.
For
Yeah,
real.
she was
Red,
Right. That
canceled.
is so.
Her whole career is over.
yep. And the messed up thing is everybody on that show had to be like, yeah, we don't agree with what she said, but please watch us. Don't cancel us. We get a job.
For real.
We got
So do you think as we've gotten older and as time progressed, do you feel like our culture has become more sensitive?
Yes, I think so. I think we're
Like, is
all
that a
31.
agreeable
We're all
statement?
31 years old, right?
No,
yeah.
not
30,
yet.
31. All of us have seen a lot of things happen in our life. We went through a lot of things. We went through a lot of transition, no social media, dial up, things like that. So our like generation is really, really diverse in different things. So I think society has evolved into a society that we have to apologize of what we say. If you say something even a little bit offensive and you have a really big platform, society forces you to apologize on what you're thinking about, even if it's right or wrong. I remember like the Boondocks, growing up on the Boondocks. I watched it. I never found anything. I mean, you find things offensive, but you kind of just like overlook it and you keep watching it for the storyline. But now, if the Boondocks came out today in 2020, I think there would be a big uproar.
They were actually supposed to bring the show back, and I was kind of looking forward to it because it pushed the button on a lot of things that we are very much sensitive to. You know, like a lot of things. But when I feel the need to boondocks a little bit, I try to get into, Dave Chappelle because he's very controversial, regardless of whatever culture he's offending or whatever he's saying. He talks on being culturally sensitive because he doesn't want to be attacked by other cultures, but in retrospect, he says what he has to say, and then he's not afraid of backlash.
And that's because also Dave Chappelle's already established.
Right.
So older people, they can get away with more stuff because, like Michael Jordan could come back from basketball. He could be he could stink, but it's like, hey, it's Michael Jackson. It's Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan. You could have that with anything where if you're already up here and you don't perform at that same level, you already have a name, so you don't got to worry about losing anything.
Well, what I was thinking about listening to you guys is that, let's say a white comedian, doesn't have to be anyone in particular, makes jokes about Black people, Muslims, the LGBTQ communities. Would society kind of go into an uproar against them as opposed to a Black person who jokes about white people? Because I feel like a Black person joking about white people is more acceptable in the in the comedy world and audience, as opposed to a white person making jokes about a Black person. I feel that way because I don't see it happening as often. Like I went to a Chris Rock show about 2-3 years ago, and it's a Netflix special. I forgot what it's called, even though I was there. And
Tambourine?
a lot of jokes about white people. He brought them up on stage, and they were okay with it, And then I'm like, what if he was white, and it was the other way around. Would they be all right with that?
But they do though. They do make white jokes and they kind of brush it off, and they
Right.
do, talk about how culturally sensitive that we are too. Like they say that, like, I don't want to get in trouble with that community. Let's think about even Gary Owens. He says a lot of things about the Black community, and people kind of let him surpass because he has a Black wife.
Yep.
So I just thought of kind of a white comedian, but she gets a lot of backlash for it though. Now, Amy Schumer is always either people find hilarious or they're like, I hate that woman. She's not a
Yes.
female. I don't. And she gets dragged on a lot, but she has that I don't care personality. But if you watch, she stays away from race. I think that's the thing, staying away from race, because Black people, I feel like since it's been exposed to what we went through, we could make comments on it because, like, hey, we've been through it already. If another culture says something that's not like Spanish, because I'm guessing, like, if you're Hispanic or some type of Spanish, you probably could get away with things. But I just feel like if you're Caucasian, it's like, you can't touch that.
Okay. So as we talk about like different cultures and their sensitivity and things like that, right? So we know that we talk about the Black and brown communities a lot. And I know back growing up, it was a big thing with Hispanics saying the N-word. Now it's very much common. Like you can hear Hispanics say, basically probably everybody drops the N-bomb. So how do you
Pretty
guys
much.
feel about that? Like, does your culture say it? Like, do people still find it? Do people even find the word still offensive? Like, does it matter what the ending is? If it's ER, if it's AH, if it's
The
just
Boondocks.
A, like.
I'm gonna touch on that subject. I actually had a conversation with one of my friends. You guys know him. I'm not gonna mention names. I just had a conversation about that yesterday, and we discussed that it is offensive because only of where the term derived from, because it's not just the N word. It could be like with the Hispanics with the Spics, or with Indians, with actual Indians from India, with the coolie. Even though it's a term that we use within our communities, even if another Guyanese person comes and tells me, refer to me as that, a lot of Jamaican people refer to me as that, and I'm just like, no, I find it offensive because first of all, that's even because where the term derived from. We were indentured servants. We came from India to the West Indies, to the Caribbean, all the Caribbean countries as servants. We weren't technically slaves, but that was the term that was giving, and we kind of were, but we were working for way lower wages than we were promised initially. So I find that offensive only because of that. So I can only imagine, but most Black people do drop the N-bomb. A lot of Hispanic people, I know more than probably Black people drop the N-bomb, and I feel like that's just no, because I don't, just because of what the term signified, prior to it becoming just a common phrase. I feel like it's now considered a phrase more so than what the white community used those terms for initially. And it's I want to say that I feel like those type of terms should just be eliminated completely. But then you do have, like I said, the Guyanese people calling each other the coolies, and then you had the Black people calling each other the N-word. And nobody really calls the white people crackers or the Hispanic sticks anymore. But that's another thing that I want to touch on. Why is it that those terms aren't as freely used, and some are?
It is relatability. That's the same thing. Like if you guys were hanging out, you're like, hey, that's my bitch, that's my hoe. Versus if I would have.
Yeah, I get where you're coming from. I honestly do not like when females call me that. I'm like, oh, what's up, bitch? What's up? No, don't call me that shit.
But see, you know what it is though? It's because we're okay with, like, we could use terms. And I'm not just gonna say we, but I feel like some people are okay with just using terms where it's normally meant to lower themselves, but they don't see it as that. It's like, hey, we're on the same level. Whereas I feel like Caucasians, don't feel like, hey, what up, cracker? Yo, what up, my snowflake? Like, they might call their cat Snowflake, or their dog. This nigga for pet
The
names.
cat. Not the cat.
And I,
Yo, no lie. My neighbor, when I was younger, my neighbor's cat ran away, and its name was Snowflake. So I'm sitting there yelling, Snowflake, Snowflake, get over here. And there was like a couple jogging, and then I'm like, oh, this is really awkward right now. Like, what's up?
can I just say something? So I just wanted to touch really quick about Latinx community using the N-word. I find it very bizarre because the original term of the N-word was to belittle the Black community, right? And I find it very bizarre when the Latinx community uses it because we have racism within our community. If you're a light-skinned Latina, if you are a dark-skinned, if you are white, if you have blonde hair and blue eyes, we in our community have so much racism. Even when you're growing up as a child, like, I'm not going to say any names, but someone growing up said that I was shit color. And that's just like that was just like a general term, like they just threw that term out, like, regular, oh, she's shit color, like, like that was just what they used to identify that I was a little bit darker than the rest of, other people. So I just find it very bizarre when people use that term when we're also struggling with identity. I grew up with a Black stepfather, so I may think differently if I was raised differently. You know what I mean? So I also think it's your upbringing.
Right. Well said. I can see that. So how do you guys think that works then? Like people that are raised like in mixed cultures, do you think they kind of like used to both ways, or they just try to use like the more dominant? Like I always wondered sometimes, like if someone like had like, if they had like a Black father and a white mother, or so far like as like a white father and a Black mother, would they be using like the N-word as much? Would they be okay with it? Or like, do they go by like what the dad's ethnicity was? Is that like
Perfect example. I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say it's funny you say that. Because just last weekend I was actually in Delaware. So like my sister lives in a community is very diverse. Like there's Indians, there's Caucasians, there's interracial families. So my nephew always plays with this little boy. Like his mom is white, his dad is Black. And he called my nephew a effing nigga.
Nice.
And my nephew was like 7. He was so hurt. The little boy is 7. He's like, well, why would he call me that? And we couldn't understand it because we're like, yo, your dad is Black. Like, what is going on in your house that you feel is okay to come outside and do that? Like, you're biracial, like you're mixed. So like my nephew was so heartbroken, and it felt a little different for me because I'm like, all right, like what do you tell your nephew? Like, what do you say to the parents? Like, which parent do you speak to? Because do I have to approach each parent different? Like, do I approach the Black dad different than I would the white mom? Do I approach them the same? Like, how do you really share the message that that's not okay? Outside of saying obviously that's not okay, like what do you tell them to teach their kids?
Just really quick, because I know we have to wrap it up, but I actually asked Danny, my son, if he knew what racism was. And he said that he heard of the word, but he doesn't know what it is. So I think kids are subjected to a lot of things that we don't realize. I didn't know that he heard the word racism. Like, where is he getting that from? Because I know that in Black History Month, they don't really, in first grade, they don't really touch on racism. They just teach them what Martin Luther King was for, and he was a good person, and he did speeches for peace. But they don't, during those homework assignments, they never touched on racism at all, or segregation. But Danny knew the word racism. So bringing like back to your nephew, that kid probably heard that word somewhere or that dialogue and just repeated it. And it's up to us as parents to correct it, no matter what color you are.
Maybe the parents weren't aware that he exposed to that phrase, because sometimes it could just be someone in the community or
maybe his white
another.
mom that's in the house calling his black dad a fucking nigga.
Touche.
That's horrible.
But it happens though. Like, you see, I think, you know what? And this is going back to what we said in the beginning. I think it's not that we're more sensitive now, it's that we're just more open. Because when we were growing up, we knew bad stuff that happened to us, but we didn't think about the other person. We didn't care. That's why we just brushed it off. But now it's like, oh, that person could be depressed. That person could have high
Right.
anxiety. It's
Like,
because we're more informed now. That's why everyone's not complaining about stuff, but why everyone's always like, think about this. Think about when I was growing up, I cared about myself and my family because those are the only people I knew. Like, I was a little selfish, but those are the only people I like revolved around. I didn't know about the little girl in like Florida who got like, taken away from her dad because he was from another country and it was an illegal immigrant. Like, I didn't see all that crap. Like, just
no, and it was going on when we were, all of the stuff that's going on right now was going on when we were children. But like I said, there's so much exposure for children to the social media with YouTube, with iPads, phones. We didn't have any of that. We had dial-up by the time we were like 10, 11, even later than that. So what we really saw was maybe on the news, that's about it. But even the news now has kind of like switched over. They did a whole complete 180 where now they're just broadcasting and exposing way more details and things that we would never even think about. I look at the news, I'm like, wait a minute, that wasn't on the news like 25 years ago when I was watching.
Well, think when we grew up, the craziest thing we had, was probably the O.J. Simpson case, and even that, they didn't say like, hey, this is a reenaction of her getting stabbed. They're like, yeah, this is how he strangled somebody. Like, you wouldn't see things like that. You would just hear,
Right.
This is what happened. Nowadays, reenactments, oh, this is how the person felt crying.
Right. So I feel like as we get into our last couple of minutes, that will actually make a great segue into our next episode. Like, do we feel our kids are overexposed to things in the media? Or not even, like, and I say the media in general, like social media, the news, cartoons, these are all things that they're all exposed to. YouTube, definitely. Because I know we're kind of coming to an end and, we're going to wrap up and give our closing remarks. So that's definitely something we can touch on next week. Do we think our kids are being overly exposed?
Something to look
Something
at.
to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
All right. So does anybody have any closing statements?
I think we're good. I think we covered it.
We did. Great job, guys. It's like our little mini high school reunion coming to fruition. Yep.
All we need is Fat Man Poop.
Yes.
This is the prom crew right here, guys.
Yes.
Prom crew right here.
We're missing a couple of people, but they might make guest appearances.
Yeah, there are a lot of people look into that, guys. A lot of people will be guests that are familiar faces.
All right, guys. So it was great. And I look forward to many, many more.
Yes, I loved it.
Thank you, guys.
I am
For Friday night, guys, we had a pretty good time. Could have been doing plenty of other things, but hey, Friday night.
Quarantine crew.
Night is still young. You can still do it.
I could still finish up. I still got 12 minutes left to my Saturday.
Oh shit.
This is Friday, bro. You going into Saturday in 12 minutes.
So I say that to say, whatever you guys do to enjoy your weekend, please be safe. They are now finding the coronavirus in semen.
Yes. Condom.
And that is my closing statement.
I don't have a comment for that one, so I'm going to run with my other lovely other.
So raise your hand if you're going to get quarantine booty.
You better be careful.
Wait,
yeah, don't do that, guys. No. Be smart.
No face, no case. We ain't gonna. We's not touching this.
Jen, stop recording.